To listen to the Maharishikaa in your language, please click on the wheel in the bottom right-hand corner. You're invited to a live online Satsang with Maharishikaa Preeti this Sunday. To know more, click the link in the description below.
Namaskar, Maya.
Namaskar.
Maya, my question is about Adhyatmic Guru, especially in the context of Guru Vada. What is the starting point of this Guru Shishya relationship, and to what extent can this be experienced?
This Guru Shishya Parampara, Guru Vada actually, it's possibly the most ancient system of transmission of knowledge about transcending human experience. So it's a system, it's like a university has its system, a college, a school. Guru Vada is a system. It has rules and regulations, it has posture of behavior that has to be taken into account, and so on. So, if a seeker wants to know more about themselves and wants to experience something which they feel they want to experience but are unable to reach, that's when they look for a guru. The guru and the shishya are two players on a stage. Each one has to play their role to perfection or to the maximum perfection they are capable of. The guru's role is to point out to the shishya when the ego is rising or the ego is rearing its head. And the shishya's role is to observe the ego that is being pointed out and try to circumvent that ego and operate, work and live from the truth which the guru is pointing out. The guru is not the last step. The child grows up touching the feet and bending to the elders and seeking blessings from the elders in the family, and then the elders show that child the gods. Then that child bends down and seeks blessings from the gods, and the gods show that now adult the gurus. The gurus then give blessings to that adult who is now a seeker, and show that adult who is now a seeker themselves. That is the Antarguru. The final destination is the guru within. So the job of the outer guru is to show the Antarguru. And the job of the shishya is to respond to the pointings of the guru, especially the pointing when the ego is rearing its head. Because that's the danger for a human being to fall into suffering. It's when they are operating from ego and not from the Atman, the Antarguru, the soul, the truth. So the relationship between the guru and the shishya is a difficult one, because the shishya doesn't want to hear what is wrong, because the ego doesn't want to go to its own funeral. And the guru doesn't really have great joy from pointing that out. So it's difficult for both. But if both have to function well with each other, then the guru has to fearlessly each and every time point out the ego, and the shishya has to bend and try to circumvent that ego and go with the truth. So if the Shishya gets angry with the Guru, or the Guru is afraid to point out the ego, then we have a problem. Then that relationship collapses. If one or the other is not doing what they're meant to do. So in an ideal relationship between a Guru and a Shishya, there's a Leela, where the Guru is pointing out the ego, the Shishya is bending and learning to live more and more from the truth. And as the Shishya learns to live more and more from the truth, they feel more and more in touch with their Antarguru, the truth. And as they go into a deeper relationship with the truth within, the more they understand the Guru and are not threatened. Because the ego gets smaller and smaller, so then there is nothing for the Guru to point out. And then it becomes actually a relationship of simple love,
In my experience, that ego would be sometimes fear, sometimes anger, or say jealousy. Does that actually reduce, such as it is dissolved, or it can come in moments and with the same intensity, and then one has to again be aware and go with the truth?
Yes, it can always rear its head. The thing is that the ego is not something that is yours. It's not something, if you're jealous or angry, these are not emotions that are intrinsic to your nature, because your nature is divine. You are impulsed by an Antar-Atman, an Antarguru, the soul, which is a drop of the cosmic divine. So your nature is divine. And because of your socialization processes and inherited karmas, you move into a state of being a servant of that ego rather than being a servant of the truth. Of subservience to the ego rather than of serving the truth. So what happens is that ego will always be there to take over again. The thing is not to look at the ego, but to focus on the truth. See your divinity. Connect with that which is divine. It's like a small child. A small child is not yet socialized. So it is there in a divine innocence. And the challenge is to be in that divine innocence as an adult and live in this world as an adult. Because then there's just more joy in the system. So every time those things rear up, like jealousy or anger or whatever, it is not necessary to look at it at all. Again, you go back to the truth. You move yourself to this moment, because in this moment, only the truth functions. The ego has no place in this moment. So if you feel challenged by anything which you already know to be the ego, you will bring yourself to this moment. And in this moment, how can the ego have any say? So that's the golden key to circumventing the ego. It's to move into this moment. Again into this moment, now, here and now. Do you feel any of those things in this moment? You can't, because it's the only moment to live in. There's no such thing as life. The idea that there is a thing called life is a false idea, because if that were the case, then there would be a linearity to existence where people would know how long they live or would live a certain age. But there is that entire element of chance, it's not chance actually, it just looks and appears like that. A life can end at any moment. So if it can end at any moment, then how can it be seen as a long, never-ending thing? It's because the ego fools you into thinking that you have time. But you don't have time, because you have only this moment. So when you start living increasingly in this moment, suddenly your life just becomes lighter. It becomes more joyous, because the ego is not at play. So it's a very powerful tool, key, The moment you feel jealousy or you feel anger or say, no, this is detrimental to this system. It's materially detrimental. Jealousy or anger, they physically destroy the cells in your body. They weaken them. If you take two systems and you do trials on them, and one system is more angry than the other, you will see that that system is weaker. Its general abilities at surviving in the environment are less. So it is detrimental to you physically to get angry. You are inviting illness that way. So in that moment, you move to this moment right now. And in this moment, there is no anger. There cannot be anger when your awareness is in this moment. Right now here, how can you be?
So then it's not correct to think that ego's intensity, is there anything as intensity, or it's just an idea?
Try to imagine yourself as you, and you have a direct connect to the soul. As you grow up, think of it as a pipe. And as you grow up, the ego increases through your socialization and that pipe gets squished. So the ego starts to take over and you are responding to the ego rather than to the truth. So if you start to move into this moment and you start to ask, oh, is my action coming from the ego or is it coming from the truth? I mean, anyone with a zero IQ can do that. You don't need to be conceptually intelligent to do that. If you can do that, what happens is that this pipe starts to widen. So then there is a flow. The impulse of the truth is something which you can feel then. So you start going with the truth, and the more you go with the truth, the more the ego is sidelined. But that doesn't mean that the ego is not there. It's there because it's part of this whole system of existence. It's part of the socialization. But as you widen this connect with the truth, as you are in surrender, you become an instrument of that truth. You start to operate from that truth in this world, not in the Himalayas in a cave, here and now, in this moment. How then does that ego have any say? But if you stop bending and you stop asking, is this action coming from the truth? And living in that truth, if you stop that, then the omnipresent ego will start to grow, and again that channel to the truth will narrow down. It's a bit of a simplistic picture, but it works. It's kind of what that whole thing is about. So it's there, but it's not there.
For example, if there is an occurrence of a fear, but the way it holds is not the way it would have done in the past.
Exactly, because that channel between you and your truth is stronger. So it has less of an impact. But if you keep giving in to the ego, then again you lose. It's like losing the tapas shakti. If you keep on bending to the truth and you have to ask the question, in this sadhana, in this practice, you ask the question, is this action arising, or is this call to action or urge to action arising from the truth of my being, from my Antar-Atman, Antarguru, or is it arising from the ego, from ignorance, from falsehood? That's the fundamental practice. And if you keep on living from that practice, there is no place for that other thing anymore. So yes, it's like building a muscle, then you walk around with a strong body. Same way you walk around with a connect with your master.
So may I, for example, an action is already taken and then suddenly you realize that I'm not sure if this came from ego or this came from truth. And if in that moment I ask whether this action had come from my ego or from my truth, and if I realize that no, it came from ego, and I surrender in the moment, to my Antaratman, do the consequences of that action still play its role, or it has a chance to kind of,
Neutralize it.
neutralize or maybe reduce its impact at least?
When you take an action which is from the ego, it causes suffering. The forward trajectory of that action can at every moment be influenced. Else, life would be a linear thing. It's not a linear thing. It's moment to moment. There is no such thing called life. There's only living. You think, you imagine that it's a long thing, but it's only moment to moment. So, assuming that is the case, you can influence the unfolding of that living simply by changing something in this moment. You act from the truth now fearlessly, this moment. The whole thing can go in another direction. It's breathtaking to see that, which is why I plead with all of you, those of you who are my students, please believe me. If you go with the truth, this living is much more joyous than you can imagine right now. It's because everything can be changed in this moment. It can take a different direction. It can take a whole other dimension even. So just because something has turned out not how you wanted, if you are functioning in sincerity, in humility, bent down in surrender, and going with the truth, you can change everything. You can literally change everything in the next moment. And that applies to physical illness, it applies to emotional suffering, it applies to conceptual confusion, it applies to being stuck in the creative ability, it applies to everything. It's breathtaking. It's literally impossible to imagine unless you actually practice it. And I mean, I don't think anyone in their right senses would say that you operating from your own impulse of truth is going to lead you to huge suffering versus you acting from something which is imposed on you from the outside. It's obvious that there is something within you which is divine in origin. Divine, that's maybe a tree hugger word, but what I mean by that is this essence of truth which is holding everything or upholding everything. So fearlessly go for it. The worst you can do is you can lose your life. But would you want to live a life which is based on fear and operating out of fear at all times? Who wants to live a life like that? And most of humankind is living like that. Because that's how society manipulates a human being into becoming a servant of society rather than a servant of the truth. Namaskar.